And there we go. We are now live. 7 hot tips that we're going to talk about emulating the pros, right? If you've ever wondered or sat in a presentation, in a room of 1,500 people and there's been that big, really charismatic presenter up on stage, or you've been in a smaller setting and you see somebody standing in front of a room presenting and thought, hey, I'd kind of like to do that too. How could I do it? How could I do it better? Well, some of the tips that we're going to share with you today are going to help you to do that. So that's why we called it Emulate the Pros. And
you may be wondering, why do we have a countdown? Like, why are we not just hopping on? Well, we want to make sure you get here. We want to give you time to park the car, get out, get ready, hang up your coat. We want to make sure that you're ready to listen and engage. So we give you a couple of minutes to do that.
You have your coffee or your cup of water with you. And
exactly. Yeah. I have my gratitude cup with my turmeric.
I have my love cup, my love mug.
You're that all-round wonderful guy. You have it all going for you, Dr. Energy.
Sometimes, some days more than others, I would say.
Okay, well, I see those days, and let me tell you, hot tips starting with Dr. Energy and his love mug. Why don't you tell us what do you want to start with today?
Well, I'd just like to jump in and talk a little bit about what you said about the countdown timer. The reason that we have the countdown timer is, like you said, is to make sure that our audience gets here. But the reason we have the countdown timer is because we want you to get here and have time. So we actually start the countdown timer before our scheduled time to be live. And the reason is there is an algorithm at work in Facebook, and some of the research has shown that it takes approximately 15 minutes or so to 18 minutes for the peak of the algorithm to send out the notifications and for you to get here. So by starting the stream earlier and having some nice music playing, and eventually we're going to upgrade that, so you might even be able to see our cameras behind the scenes as we're preparing for the stream. And it helps get the notifications out there to the audience and to anybody else out there who might be wanting to watch.
Right. So we wanted to explain why. Like, it's a cool thing. It's not a New Year's only related thing. There are reasons. And if there are things that you see us do and you're curious, why are we doing it? Rest assured that we have researched what we're doing.
Absolutely.
So that we could respond to how to optimize and maximize the time that we spend here and that you spend here. So if you hop on at 11 o'clock and you can hear our banter, then you're going to figure out 5 minutes for the timer, another 5 minutes, 10 minutes. By 15 minutes, the algorithms are at their peak, right?
Which means because we start the timer before the scheduled live, by the time we're 5 minutes into our content, we have the peak of the algorithm. So we don't have to waste our time or your time, just doing witty banter and, making cracking jokes and wasting time. We can get right to our topic. So we've kind of teased a little bit about emulating the pros, and we've given you a couple of bonus tips. So Catherine, why don't you start us off with the first of our 7 hot tips? What's that all about?
All right. Well, thank you so much. I like to think about baseball, and you have a pitcher, you have a player, and you have a catcher. So the job of the catcher is you hear my background sounds, I'll turn it off.
That's okay.
The job of the catcher is to catch the ball to strike out the player. Okay. You got that baseball image? We want to capture our audience. So think of capturing the audience. You know that expression, like in the palm of your hand? Okay, so you have the baseball, you have this cliche, I have my husband or my wife right in the palm of my hand, or my puppy eating out of the palm of my hand. Mm-hmm. You're imagining that. So we want our audience to be captured by us. We want you to feel, to believe, to take the action that this is worth your time.
Right. Beautiful.
Thank you.
The second tip that we'd like to share is that form follows function. And basically what that means is you can structure your presentations, your speeches, your stories in different ways. And there's no one single way to do it. However, it is necessary to create a structure, a container for your content, because you could have the best content in the world, the best ideas, the best information, but if you don't put it into a mentally digestible package in a logical way for people to consume it and to take it in, it's going to fall flat. Think of a bucket full of water, but it's got holes in it. And you're putting all your content as the water in the bucket. And every time you put more and more water in, it's just leaking out the bottom. Some people are getting some of the content and some are not, because it's all leaking away, but you have to keep putting more content in. But if you have a nice solid structure, it plugs those holes and more of your content gets delivered to your audience.
Can I say something on that?
Absolutely.
Think about when you're getting dressed. Think about your wardrobe again. Think about how you want it to all look and feel. And you want to have that put together. There's so many things that we put together. We put recipes together. We can put puzzles together. We put systems together for our business. There's a system for our car. Form follows function. You know, we exercise. We have, Dr. Energy and I have a big background in exercising. And, you know, form is important. Like, don't tell me you're going to just do any old lunge, because you're going to hurt yourself, right? Form follows function. So when you have the right form, you know that it's going to work out just right. Drive a clutch, drive a stick shift, and tell me that you're not going to do the right thing. And how's that going to function? Oh my gosh, I don't even want to get into that. It hurts to even think about it, right?
Exactly.
All right, let's go to,
you want to go to number 3?
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about something like this. Stories. But in addition to stories, how do we tell it? Are we low key? Are we loud? Are we using our New York voice, our outdoor voice? Are we putting on a show? I'm not a TikToker, but you know what I'm talking about.
I like that flashing light.
Right? So do I.
Changing colors.
Because I had to have a bit of a show. Otherwise, I would bored. So when you tell a story, there are many different ways that you can do that. And know that when you're telling a story, you're going to get the optimal results when you know your story. So it's really important that you know what you're going to say. For example, you know the story that starts with once upon a time. And when I was little, my father used to give me a story, read me and tell me a story. He didn't read it. He told it to me.
Right.
So we know Little Red Riding Hood. We know these stories. They start with once upon a time and we know how they go. When you tell that story, take a moment. I was going to turn my light back on. Take a moment. I guess I'm not turning my light on.
Technology.
Right. Breathe. Pause. Wait for it. Use different techniques. If I lower my voice and I speak softly, if I speak close to the mic, if I look at you, I'm more apt to have your attention than I am if I just run off at the mouth and hurry up and say what I want to say and not really think about what you're feeling.
Right. Nice. Yeah, the stories are so important. It's what helps us connect emotionally with our audience. It helps us get a window. It helps the audience get a window into who we are and helps us communicate our ideas more fully. And that actually leads into the next tip, which is the fact that I'll show you mine. And that in itself has a specific connotation, or it could have a specific connotation, depending on where your mind goes. I know where mine goes sometimes and where we went as kids. See what I did there? A nice little story. As children, when we said, hey, I'll show you mine, what did that mean? What did that mean to you? It might have meant, hey, show me what you got for lunch and I'll show you mine. Maybe we can trade. As older kids, teenagers, and into our 20s, it might mean something a little bit different. I don't know. The idea, though, about showing yours and sharing is sharing something about yourself. It allows our audience to have a more of a connection with us and say, hey, I can relate to that. I've been through that myself. Or they will have a better understanding of where we're coming from, and therefore what we are teaching or sharing will land differently with the audience when they see a little bit of vulnerability from us. Now, it doesn't mean you want to stand on stage and treat it as therapy, because I've seen people do that, and that's just like, I'm cringing in my seat, and I just want to like go up there and give the person a hug and say, hey, go see a therapist. We've all been in those types of presentations. So, but sharing something personal about your life, a story or an experience as it relates to what you're presenting or sharing, makes a big difference. So for example, I can remember sitting in an audience at the Millionaire Mind seminar, and the instructor, the coach, saying, if you would like to learn about how we do what we do up here on stage, stick around tonight after the main part of the presentation, and we'll go over with you some of the techniques that we use from the stage. And I thought, oh, I'll stick around. And I was surprised, out of, an audience of about 14 or 1500, only about 150 people stuck around, which I guess, that's almost not quite 10%. It's a pretty good number. And he started sharing about what they do and how they do it. And he said, now remember, and this is late at night, this is 11 o'clock at night after we've been in our seats or been in the seminar for 10 or 12 hours. But he said, remember this tomorrow when you're sitting in the audience and we're going through this. You're gonna laugh when you see me doing certain things that he just shared with us. And everybody else around you is going to be wondering what you're laughing at. And they're not going to know because they didn't stick around for this. And that's when he shared all those tips, that's when I really got into wanting to be the guy on stage and presenting, not because I could trick people or anything like that, but because I saw how what we do from the stage or from a presentation such as this, how we can help people. And that's always what I'm about.
Thank you. That is the authentic you. And when we talk about helping someone, very often someone will say, hey, where'd you go for dinner? What movie did you see? What car do you drive? What camera are you using? How'd you get that sound? When you did that, what did you use to do that? What's your favorite lipstick? Like, what's the mascara you're using today? Tips.
It's always hard to do this on camera. I got to lean this way and go this way. What software are we using? And it's over your head, right? Which way do I point on camera? I can never get it right.
And knowing that we will share.
Absolutely.
You can ask. So when we talk about, I'll show you mine, what's really important is to have someone ask you, can you show me yours? To have the posture that someone wants to know. How do you do that? Hey, how do you turn the filters on? How do you turn the filters off? How do you get the camera like that? So when someone is paying attention or you're giving value to them because it happens to be the right time for them to hear it, it's timing, then you have someone that you can show yours to.
Right.
Good idea not to show it if they're not asking for it.
And I think something you mentioned there is about asking, can you show me yours, leads us into tip number 5. You do that so well.
Lead you into this.
I want to lead you into it.
Okay, lead me into it. So when was the last time you took a long walk? When was the last time you had a nice hot cup of tea sitting by the fireplace? When was the last time you took a swim in the ocean? When was the last time you had to go chase your dog? When was the last time you took something out of the oven and it just wasn't cooked enough? A question can bring you right back to a scenario. right back to a real life situation. I can relate to sitting on the beach. I can relate to chasing the dog. I can relate to that not being quite done, having to put it back in the oven. That question will bring your audience, your guest, your partner to a place, an emotional attachment. And if it's a positive emotional attachment, that's where you get bonus points. You can go for the drama if you wish. But the question is what brings people into their head, and then they will relate to what it is that you have to say. And as soon as you get an or ah, you know you're good.
Oops. There we go. Playing with the software. I love questions. Questions really engage our mind. When we ask a question, our listener's mind immediately wants to answer it. Have you ever been to a seminar and the presenter is speaking and they're asking a question, and do you know what I'm talking about? Our mind immediately is hooked. It wants to answer the question. It wants to know what happened. Did you notice what happened there when I asked that question, but I didn't finish asking the question? Where did your mind go? For those people who are really into the details, their mind was going, finish the damn question. Why can't you just ask the question? They want to know what's the question so that they know how to answer it and what to expect. So we can really engage people by not only asking questions, but by how we ask a question. Pauses are really useful in asking a question as well. Rara did this at the beginning when she talked about raising your voice, lowering your voice, changing the rhythm and the pace of speaking. When we ask a question, we need to pause afterwards so it gives our listeners time to take in the question and start to come up with an answer. So pauses are really, really useful when asking a question.
I have a question.
Of course.
So what if you get up on your stage or in front of your camera and you just completely forget what you're going to say? You can't find your notes, something goes wrong, you draw blank. You've seen it happen. It happens to movie stars, it happens to politicians, it happens to teachers, instructors, it happens to us, it happens to everyone. What do you do when you draw blank?
Depends on the situation. You could just say to your audience, just give me one moment. I need to just check my notes here, make sure everything's all set up right. And then boom, you check the notes and you get going again. Or you could ask your audience a question. What is it you would like to get out of the presentation today? What do you think about what I just said? There are all these, and they're open-ended questions. And then you can go around the audience, letting them answer the question, thanking them for their questions and their answers. And then it will usually trigger you. Oh, that's right. This is where I was. And then you say, okay, great. Those were awesome questions. Those were awesome answers. Now let's get back on track.
That's if we're live. What if we're doing this these days?
This is live. So it's the same. It would be the same thing. If I was doing a recorded presentation, it's easy. You just hit pause or stop and re-record or edit out what doesn't fit. That's the easy part.
And if your audience isn't there and you ask a question and they're not answering you because you just aren't able to do that.
Right.
Another good tip is have a story in your mind, sort of a filler story.
Right.
In send out cards, I call it a card in the holster. And I always have like a card of the month that I want to send to people that I meet. So have a story in the holster, a story that is short and concise, but I don't want to say but that, so nix that. A story that's short and concise that you can share at any given time that will be a great bridge, no plug intended, haha. Great. so funny. It would be a great bridge that you can say at any time if you do forget something.
If you get stuck, right?
Practice that. Think about the stories that can just come up, and you'll train yourself that you have a 30-second or a 1-minute story, and that can get you back on track.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So getting us back on track.
Service.
Would you like to share our tip number 6?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Serving others. We have different ways of relating to this. Some of us, it's with our family. Some of us, it's with organizations, fundraisers. I'm a Rotarian. So service above self is something that's core value. It is what we do as Rotarians. As a mom, as a grandma, as a business partner, having customers and clients. Putting others first. Now, let's think about it. I hear all the time, I want to help someone. I want to help others. Really? Really? Do you want to come and help me dig a ditch today? Do you want to only help others because it's the thing that you do and get paid for? Think about helping someone. I was going to tell a story about when Alex McCarsky stood up in a LaTip meeting, and he was telling everyone, instead of what he did for a living, that he has a son who played hockey, and he was looking for a coach, and someone immediately raised their hand, and he made a connection. And Alex knew that people wanted to help. He knew people would want to help. So instead of talking about his business, he talked about his life. And it was amazing. There were 250 people there, and it was instantaneous. So do you know how to help someone?
I'm reminding you, meditate.
Alexa's reminding me to meditate.
If you say it loud enough, you might be able to trigger our audience's Alexa devices. So remember, be careful with that.
Oh, look at that. I can trigger your Google Home or trigger your Alexa.
Or your Siri, who knows, whatever, right?
Right. Or Cortana.
Cortana.
Yep. So about servicing people, think about what you really are willing to do. And are you that person that people come to? Because you do help. Not because you can do it all, but you can help. You can be the connector. Think about, if you really want to help people, is it only because you have that special lotion or potion? Or is it because you will go out of your way to help someone? That is a different level of service above self.
Awesome. And, I put the question in the comments there about, how are you serving your audience? What value are you providing to them? And this leads us right actually into our seventh tip, which is our audience close-up. And what I'd like you to remember is that the star of the show is not the person on the stage. It's not you standing up in front. It's the people in the audience. Remember that the focus is on your audience. How does your presentation, your speech, your story, how does it provide value to your audience? What is it that they are interested in? So when we switch from that ego-based place of being on stage, hey, look at me, I'm the guy on stage, just do what I do, don't question it, to a place of creating a presentation, creating a story, creating a speech that is tailored to the audience in front of us, it's going to give the most value to that audience. It makes them the stars of the show, and especially when we start to ask questions from our audience. So if I'm standing up on stage and I'm giving a presentation to a bunch of, say, realtors, that presentation and my stories are going to be different than if I'm standing in front of, say, a bunch of massage therapists, or if I'm standing in front of a bunch of retail store owners. The messages are going to be slightly different. They're going to be tailored to the people that are in front of me so that they can get the most value out of being there, so that their time is not wasted. Their time is valuable. If somebody is giving you their time and attention, that is more valuable to them probably than money. So if they're giving you time, energy, and attention, treasure it, treat it well, and they will do it again and again, and they will keep coming back and hearing what you have to say because they know you have the integrity to honor them.
You made me think about, have you ever been on a canoe, on a dock, in a kayak, on the lake, and looked at the bright stars in the sky? And you know how that attracts you when you go there because you want to see those stars. Think of your audience as that midnight sky where you look for those stars and you are there waiting for them. When you are speaking to your audience, how do you know who they are? Unless you've either tuned in intuitively, taken the time to figure
Research.
out who they are, given them an opportunity to tell you. If I say, I want to talk to you today about how to use a gaming mouse, and it's just not in your wheelhouse, and you didn't sign up for that, and I go on talking, maybe in 30 seconds, I'll be talking to myself, maybe in 10 seconds. So if it's about your audience, know your audience. You might have a list of things that you want to say and do, but if you're not reading your audience, if pivoting is not something that you're familiar with,
Right.
if you have a heckler or someone who's going to
That
do
never happens.
Never. You might need to know how to handle that so that you, as the presenter and the professional, can retain the rest of the audience, know who's in the audience, know where they're from. And if you can, ask them, engage with them. This is a group. This is a page, rather.
Right.
And on this page, we're telling you what we're doing. We're giving you notice as to when we'll be here. And then you can communicate with us as you do offline or on the page or whenever you wish.
Right.
Based on that interaction and feedback, we come back and say, here we are, and this is what we're going to do today. And look for us next Thursday because we'll be back. And how does that, how does that happen? It's because you're engaging with us. So we're coming back to give you what you asked of us. Now, if you have no audience because it's your very first time, tell your audience, tell them what you told them, and then tell them again. And tell them what you're going to do. I'm going to talk to you today about turning on your lighting when you're in front of a camera.
Right.
And this is how you turn the lighting on. And I just shared with you how to turn the lighting on in front of the camera. And now there's the value. You told them, you showed them, and you told them what you did. I just want you to be aware, be really aware that you need to know your audience to the best of your ability and not just think about what's in your head and what you want to say, because it's not as important as what your audience wants you to say.
Exactly. You know, that's an awesome tip. I think that wraps us up for this week. We'll see everybody next week.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao, babies.